Johan, now the damage done by chemical and air pollution is no mystery. Plastic has seeped into virtually all of the world's ecosystems, no matter how difficult they are to reach, from Mount Everest to the deep seas. Air pollution, meanwhile, is estimated to cause some 6.5 million excess deaths per year worldwide and counting. But there's one form of pollution with dangers that we're perhaps less aware of, and that's light pollution. My guest today, Johan Eklof, just published a manifesto. It's out in French, but in English, it translates to Darkness Manifesto, and it explores the importance of living in darkness in order to better preserve life. He joins me now on set for Perspective. Good morning, Johan. Thank you so much for coming.
Good morning.
So light pollution is not something we hear about often. What led you to begin researching this topic? And I wonder if it had anything to do with the link between bats and churches that you outline in the intro.
Yes, I've been working with bats for 25 years almost, and when we realized they're actually very, very afraid of the light. They've been living in the dark for 50 or 60 million years, so they're very adapted to darkness.
So how exactly then do you measure the effects of artificial light on the ecosystem? Is it the fact that the duration of light is too long, that it's all night, for example, or is it the fact that it's just simply artificial light that's not coming from the sun?
It's all of the above, I would say, depending on what species you're looking at. The amount of light makes the night go away, so to speak. We're actually killing the night. So all animals living during the dark hours, they have very little space left.
So how do you define light pollution concretely then? Is it any artificial light past a certain hour? Is it certain types of light bulbs? How extensive is it as a concept?
There are different ways to deal with this, but I would say that any artificial light that disturbs something, any light that we don't really need, light that shines upwards, for example, that's light pollution.
How do you define then wasted light, which you mentioned there, empty office buildings lit up at night when people aren't there? Is it lit up monuments? What is the scale of wasted light?
This is growing 2 to 3 to 4% globally every year. And ever since we started using LED lights, it's been growing exponentially. So the night is actually disappearing. Before we get to that, perhaps let's talk about what are some of the concrete effects of light pollution on wildlife that you found either most surprising or most disturbing in your research? The first thing I saw was that half of the bats living in churches has been gone since 30 years. And then I moved on to doing research on insects, and it's quite obvious. Everybody has, being in the garden, looking at a light shining beside the door, they see the insects like trapped into the light. And so if you take that small amount of light and then you look at the brightest lights on Earth, the insects are drawn from the countryside to the cities.
I think a lot of people might see this and think, okay, if insects are drawn to the cities or if there are fewer bats in churches, why does that matter?
It matters, for once, it's a part of the whole mass extinction we're seeing right now, and it affects pollination.
In what way?
It's been shown that if you compare grass fields with streetlights, with fields without streetlights, there are 60% less flowers are pollinated, and that means we don't get the fruit, the vegetables that we need.
So you say in your book that light pollution is one of the easiest to tackle with the fewest consequences. There's no waste. We're not risking people's lives necessarily. If that's the case, why is nothing done? In other words, why do we keep buildings lit up at night? Why are oil platforms in the middle of the ocean where ostensibly no one needs them, at least in the middle of the night? Why is all of that kept on?
Well, first of all, we are afraid of the dark. So we need the light to see what we're doing. And the lights kept on, for example, on monuments and on, everywhere. It's for commercial reasons, it's for beauty, it's for us being awake late at night. We don't need it, but we like it.
So for you, the vast majority of that light pollution that you just referenced there is totally unnecessary and should be finished.
I think so.
How do the consequences of artificial light pollution eventually trickle down to humans? You mentioned a little bit about this question of pollination, which of course affects food sources, but how else could it directly damage human health, for example?
Has actually been shown that some sorts of cancer are we're at high risk of getting those hormone-induced cancers in areas with high amount of light pollution.
Why do you think this form of pollution is so much less talked about than others? We hear more and more, certainly not enough, but we are hearing more and more about plastic pollution, other types of chemical pollution, air pollution. Why is this so absent?
It's a very new field of research, and 30 years ago it was only astronomers talking about light pollution. They didn't see the stars anymore. But ever since the introduction of the LED light, we've been lighting up the world even more, and now even biologists, physiologists have realized that this is a problem.
Johan Eklof, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. And as a reminder to our viewers, Johan Eklof's Ozone la Nuit is out in French and soon perhaps in English, Darkness Manifesto.